Good evening and welcome to the TLC Unleashed show, Hollywood Vibes, Sports and Life with your host, Tracy Lynn. We have two Petes in the house tonight. One's almost here and we have one with us now. So Pete Pigeon, welcome to the show tonight.
Thanks for having me, Tracy. Great to be here.
I am so excited. It feels like it's been forever that we've lined this up to get you on the show.
It's true, yeah. It's probably, 6 weeks ago? 8 weeks ago?
Yeah. So we met at the Malibu Guitar Festival and this guy was rocking out. I couldn't resist having him on the show because, I mean, your performance was better than exceptional. It was unbelievable.
Thanks, Tracy. Yeah, that was a very difficult, emotional day. Chris Cornell was my #1 vocal influence and idol from, early 90s, really.
Yeah.
Since I started playing, and he died that morning. I found out at 1 in the morning, that morning of the performance. And Doug DeLuca, the founder of Malibu Guitar Festival, was generous enough to put me up in a very tight schedule and fit me in. And it really hit a home run. I got a whole bunch of press from it. Obviously, you found me that way. But yeah, that was a rough night. I'm glad it turned out in a positive.
Do you find too, I mean, and I'm sorry for your loss and the loss of so many people too, because I mean, he was an exceptional musician, but you find when you go through tragedies and experiences like that, it, tugs on the emotional heartstrings, and because you were passionate that night. I never met you before, but you were passionate.
Yeah, the thing that makes any music above any other level of any other musician, when it goes beyond technicality and talent, is having something that connects with the listener's psyche. So if you can connect with emotion or a life experience in some way, that's where people go, oh, that really made it happen. So for me, being in a very emotionally tumultuous situation produced a different performance than I would have done any other night I would have played that song. And also for the audience to connect with that because they're going through the same thing, created a real moment. So it was a shame it had to be a death that brought that on, but for sure, the emotional content is always the #1.
Yeah, I mean, you were phenomenal, and just it was like, it seeped through you, and we just felt it, and the performance was unbelievable. And after, it was great seeing you walk through the crowd because everyone was like, Pete, Pete.
Yeah, right. It was pretty wild.
So I was glad that I was able to connect with you because being a perfect stranger was like, okay, I wanted to make sure I knew who you were. And, how we could get you on the show. So it's exciting that you're finally here.
Thank you.
So tell me how your career started. I mean, have you been playing since you were a young little boy?
Yeah. I started playing very young. My first public performance was the Spring Fest in 1991 in Connecticut, Simsbury, Connecticut. I played bass in my brother's progressive rock band.
Okay.
I played Yours Is No Disgrace by Yes.
Okay.
And I think What You're Doing by Rush.
Okay.
That was where I started. So that already is like pretty advanced for most people. So that to be my first gig, I didn't know. I mean, I was talented, but I didn't really understand that other people weren't like me.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh yeah, sure, I'll just play this 17-minute long song or whatever it was,
Yeah.
And then it just sort of blossomed from there. Done a lot of different stuff, everything from jazz to funk, Americana, folk music.
Yeah. What is your favorite? Because it's so eclectic. There's so many different, experiences from you that I've seen, and it's great because I was looking you up, and I was like, wow, he just hits everything.
Yeah, it all comes back to Van Halen and Rush. If I was on a desert island and I had every Van Halen and Rush record, I'd be just fine.
Yeah, I liked Van Halen too. It was always like practicing the Van Halen jump, David Lee Roth jump. Actually, scissor kick, off the bed, on the bed, wherever. Yeah, I've pulled a few hamstrings.
You got it. Yep, I still do that.
That's awesome. So those are your favorites. So
and my new album is more Americana based.
Okay.
I grew up listening to the band, Randy Newman, Billy Joel, Bonnie Raitt, the Beatles. Very traditional songwriting, but creative stuff. Like the Beatles weren't, super traditional. Like towards the second half of their career, they're very experimental, almost like a progressive band. So that the new record is sort of reaching back to that and remembering the core songwriting stuff that I grew up listening to.
Yeah.
And I got to play with Levon Helm from the band on that record, so that was a dream come true.
Amazing.
And it's you know, who knows what the next one will be? It'll probably be a rock record or something, or I'll be playing with a symphony.
And where did you originally come from then?
Simsbury, Connecticut.
Connecticut. Welcome. Hey, Pete.
Hey, Pete. How you doing?
It's Pete and Pete. It's the Pete and Pete
Nice
show
to meet you,
tonight.
Pleasure.
I figured we might as well synchronize the Pete's together tonight.
Yeah, right.
Pete Antico just joined us, guys. We'll be speaking to him. Welcome to the show, Pete.
Thank you. How are you?
I'm amazing. Amazing, amazing. The sun's shining and I'm above ground, so not much to complain about. So we were just talking about where Pete Pigeon is from and Connecticut, and amazing singer, songwriter. And so what you talked a little bit about what you're influenced by in the music world. So did your family support you growing up, being a musician and stuff like that?
They did, thankfully. Yeah. My dad was a guitar player.
Yeah.
So he brought that into the family. My brother was a guitar player.
Okay.
He was into shred back in the late 80s, early 90s. So when I started learning how to play guitar, it was like, here's the most difficult music that exists on the planet. Start here and learn this. So I was playing Eruption when I was 8 years old, and coming up through that type of encouragement was unlike most people go through. And my mom was very supportive. I did marching band all through high school.
Good.
So yeah, they did it right.
And so when was the transition, the move to LA?
I moved here in December.
Just December.
Just December, yeah.
Wow, I thought I was a newbie.
Yeah, right.
Jeez, I've been here forever now. Good for you. Congratulations.
Yeah, I was playing some good shows. I did the We Are LA Festival last fall, and then I did the Malibu Guitar Festival last fall, and then again this year. Yep. Or last spring, I'm sorry. And I was starting to get some good gigs out here, and I was in Denver. And I was like, why don't I just move there? Because I'll just start making more contacts and playing better shows, and things have been great. So.
Yeah, amazing. Well, I want to welcome Pete Antico to the show. He's an actor, stunt coordinator, and he's also running for the presidency of SAG-AFTRA. So welcome to the show, Pete.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to see you. I'm good. We saw you on the red carpet at the Team Up for Tourette's charity event that we were doing a couple weeks back. I guess it's about 3 weeks now. So it's nice to see you again. We wanted to talk and share your story tonight, and all the things that you're doing as well. And Pete's actually going to play for us tonight too, so it's going to be pretty exciting.
Awesome. He's got a good name, so it's a good start.
I know, right? Meet Pete.
I love it.
First, I want to say that I was diagnosed with Tourette's when I was 7 years old, but I've supported those charities, and I was a national spokesman for the National Tourette Syndrome Association a few years back. Now my friend Dash Miak, who is on Ray Donovan, has been the ambassador, and he does a really great job at getting awareness to that. But I've been going through a process called rational inquiry that actually is gotten rid of about 85% of the symptoms.
Wow.
Which is a really fascinating cognitive process. And then, so I always support advancements in new paradigms and how to deal with issues, because you can't, if you do the same things the same old way, you're going to get the same old thing.
That's right.
So you have to reinvent. I think the old way is the new way, and you really have to look for new paradigms in thought, and new paradigms in medicine, and new paradigms in music, politics, I believe in the truth, and the truth has been decimated in this country, and it needs to come back. People need to start being led by the truth instead of deception, lies, and deceit. I mean, American people should wake up and say, if someone says something is true, ask for the data. Where is the data? And if it's scientific, verifiable, reproducible, quantifiable, and consistent, that would be the definition of a fact. And I'd be more along the lines of Neil deGrasse Tyson or the late Carl Sagan in dealing with everything should be scientific and not based in emotion or the reactionary mind. So
Amazing.
that being said,
that hits home right now. Thank you for that. I appreciate that, Pete. And I mean, obviously, you know, we also had my friend Devin Denicola on the show, and he was, you know, hosting the charity event. And, you know, we talked a lot about the Tourette's and, you know, just educating everyone to understand what it is. And it's so nice to see people that have, you know, gone through Tourette's and suffered through Tourette's and, you know, having a successful life, because a lot of people don't think that you can, you know, be in these positions or acting or stunt coordinating or doing whatever you're doing in life. And so it's nice to be able to see you're such an example of this and really just working through it and educating people. So
who in life ever made any progress from being comfortable?
Exactly.
Did anybody in life
Nope.
make something of themselves sitting on a beach sipping a Mai Tai? Now, that might be productive for maybe a half an hour or an hour, but after that, I mean, what else is there? I mean, there really is no comfort in, you know, scientific theory. There's no comfort in training for an event, whether you're an athlete. There's no comfort in studying for a test or educating yourself, because you're actually pushing yourself. Actually, the most gains in life from any beings comes in uncomfortability. So we just have to find the joy in the uncomfortability, and then that would be, I think, the most positive thing and the most honest thing to say. So
Absolutely.
because everybody was looking for a way out. There is no way out. You're in a human body. It's uncomfortable to be in a human body. We just have to accept that and move on.
Yeah, the way is through. You got to go through. So what was it like for you too, Pete? Because, I mean, it's not all, you know, peaches and cream, and all of a sudden you're this great musician, singer, artist. I mean, you've had to have some downfalls too, coming to LA, another city, another world from Connecticut. I mean,
Still isn't easy, yeah.
yeah, and it never will be,
Probably
right?
never will, yeah.
No, it won't.
I mean, we were just talking about the fact that I want to be playing out more with my band, but
Yeah.
I'm prevented by real life stuff. Like, I've already moved 4 times, and I moved here in December. So
Wow.
that's difficult, and you're always paying more expenses for moving, and then you have a new
Yeah.
security deposit in first and last month, and I'm probably going to have to move again in August 15th.
Yeah.
So, you know, I would love to just be playing music and have a new lineup and be playing gigs all the time, and it's great, but real life comes into play, and you
Yeah.
have to deal with that. You don't have a choice. And then when you figure that out to a point where it's comfortable, or maybe not comfortable, but at least a plateau where you're not, you know, holding the weight of the world over your head every day, then you can move forward, and you just find those little niches. Like, maybe you got 2
Yeah.
hours in the day, pick up the guitar for 2 hours, and then the other 12 hours of your day are really difficult.
Yeah, and you have to practice your craft too all the time, every day.
All
It
the
doesn't
time.
matter what's in the way, what obstacle. I was just having a conversation with a great friend of mine on the way here to the show, and it was the same thing. You know, when you're in fear and you're in that uncomfortability, but you're in worry. When
Right.
you're in worry about, you know, where you're going to live, what you're going to do, how you're going to make money, how you're going to do all these things, it's hard for us to, you know, be able to do what we're passionate about, what we're good at. So, you know, obviously, you know, you're working through the stuff, and and you're getting ahead. I can't wait to hear you play.
Thanks.
We're going to talk to Pete a little bit more, because I want to
Yeah.
know what it's like running for the candidate for presidency of SAG-AFTRA. Tell me about that.
Well, it's an interesting event. There's a lot of things going on at SAG-AFTRA currently. Our current leadership has now called and recommended for a strike authorization, which means they don't like the contract that the AMPTP or the producers are offering, and so they're asking the members' permission to strike. In other words, if they don't like the contract, then the membership will support them walking out. This is the same contract deal points that were really present in 2009 when new media, which is not new media anymore, they have to change this word. It's not new media. It's just media. Anything that could be disseminated on an iPhone, a notebook, a notepad, or I mean, I don't care if it's a heads-up display on Google Glass. Everything is shifting towards, you know, fiber optics or different new invented kinds of media, and the kinds of media that hasn't been invented yet. All this comes under play and under a different contracts. And what the new leadership needs to understand is, in order to combat this, they need to stand together and make alliances with the writers and the directors, and the IATSE, which are the cinematographers, and then even the Teamsters. There needs to be an alliance of all media performers, so then they can stand up to the machine. It's a bit of a difficult task because a lot of writers are producers, are directors. They cross over. So the contracts are lopsided towards producers. In the new media contract, they're not offering like any residuals. I mean, the contracts for the last, since 2010, 11, and 12, when they stated that new media this is a new venture, there's no way to quantify what can be earned. We don't know what the model is, and they kept espousing that kind of rhetoric. And my opinion was back then was we should still have the same contracts we do now, like that should be similar to the network contracts. And I said, well, when you make money, then this is what we'll take. But right now, we're happy with our percentage of nothing. When you quantify, and we can study the economics of the ad revenues and the subscription-based services like Hulu, Netflix, and Amazon, because you could look at their year-end earnings, because that's public. You can get it on CNBC, but it's public knowledge. And then you could figure out with the amount of the mega billions that they're earning, there certainly is enough money to take care of like good people, the rank and file. Why does this have to be like Egypt, where you have a king, a czar, and you have 12 of the highest paid media conglomerate presidents who earn over a 3-year period over $240 million, when the last contract that SAG-AFTRA negotiated was a $200 million supposed alleged win split between 140,000 active members. And when you factor in the rate of inflation, I mean, the government's phony figure, in my opinion, it's a phony figure, but about 2.25%. We got 2.5% the first year, so maybe we made 0.25%, and the second year maybe 0.75%, the third year maybe 0.75%. But that doesn't factor in like really how economics work would be to factor it in over a basket of commodities, which number one, food and energy. Food and energy is not factored in the consumer price index. We eat every day and we consume energy every day. So if the price of oil goes up, natural gas goes up, or food goes up, milk goes up, eggs goes up, beef goes up, all of the commodities, you have to really run the economic case along those commodities. And as president, I would I would run it much differently. If I was negotiating, I would have a complete economic study done, and I'd say, here's what you're making, and you can't tell me with the billions of dollars you're making on all these new fields that there's not enough money to take care of people that have been working in this business forever, from actors to grips to electricians, to background artists. And in my particular guild or union, SAG-AFTRA, we only deal with stunt performers, singers, dancers, broadcasters, and puppeteers, and again, the background performers. And they constantly want to chip away at the low end. The background performers, they make, there's no jurisdiction. There's right to work states in New Orleans and Florida and Atlanta, where a lot of the production resides, and yet there's no jurisdiction for these players. So they're trying to pay them $60 a day for 8 hours, which is unconscionable.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah. But in the actors field, the new media is that you get Marvel and Netflix, and they're paying people on these big kind of action shows. They're paying people their weekly salaries with no residuals for 12 months. Actors don't live on usually their normal salary. They live on residuals because it's not a steady job. It's like Hollywood gets misrepresented. So according to the liberal faction, and everybody and the other parts of the country think the actors are all entitled people. 95% of the actors make no money. They're at the poverty level. They're lucky if they can afford to even qualify for health care. It's the top 5% that you see on TV. They're George Clooney's and the Tom Cruises and all the big celebs that you see on television and film. They're an anomaly. But the rest of the rank and file are normal people that are just like carpenters or drywall people. They're trying to get along and feed their families. And it's really unethical for human beings to treat other human beings like that. There's plenty of money to go around, so they should want to, as beings, to be fair and equitable. Like you hear Bernie Sanders talk about the income inequality. Well, when there's plenty of money in a business, and they choose to all take it for the top 5%, when the artists that actually earn them that money, the rank and file actors and the performers and the action performers, take the stunt community. Fast and Furious would be a home movie that would probably make $10 if it wasn't for the real stars of that film, which are the action. Not to discount, Vin Diesel, but respectfully, this is based upon action. No one would go to see that movie if it wasn't for the ass-kicking car action, done by, Spiro Zatos and Andy and Jack Gill and the boys that do them. So this is a factor that action and all these action films for the last 10 years has garnered billions at the box office, which in turn pays studio chiefs their big salaries, their bonuses. It pays agents and it pays stars their big salaries. It's an ecosystem that has to be really put on a good, strong, sound economic platform so people actually understand where their bread is buttered. And all people, even the background, they're all included in making this machine work.
That's right.
And you're only good as your weakest link. And all has to be addressed, and it has to be all inclusive. So I'm really, if anybody listens to this, every star, the Mark Wahlbergs, my friend Sean Penn, and all the big leads out there, I'm asking you to stand together with your fellow performers and up and say you will not work for no residuals. And you're standing for your fellow performer, because without this union, you wouldn't have had the platform to get where you are now. So I'm asking you to pay it forward, and everyone from the television stars to the film stars to come together and tell these producers to stand together with your brothers and sister performers and tell them that you will not work for these abusive wages. And I have to say, throughout the years of negotiations, it's a ploy. They take away so much, and to insult people. Everybody reacts and has a reaction, and then they give a little bit back, and then the performer thinks you get some. They got something. This is just a negotiating ploy, and it should be rejected. The writers should reject it, and the directors should reject it. They should just stand with us, because all those people, the DJ and the WJ, they got their contracts ratified already. And they didn't take rollbacks. I didn't think their contracts were decent. The directors made some good advancements in new media.
Okay.
Old media, I'm calling it now. It's old media. But and the Writers Guild got a decent deal. And they had a strike authorization, and they were ready to walk out. And the Screen Actors Guild is doing the same thing, and rightly so. I stand firmly behind. And everybody out there, if they give you a strike authorization, I'm a presidential candidate. I'm certainly recommending that you vote yes to give our National Board, our negotiation committee, the tools they need to negotiate a better contract. Though I'm not a fan of the current leadership, and I'm running against them based upon their lack of economic and fiduciary responsibility and their lack of business acumen. I stand with them in negotiating this contract for the good of all people.
Well said, Pete Antico. That's amazing. I really hope it turns out in favor of, contributing and helping everyone. And I'm in favor of that as well. On that note,
I was going to say, everything that you just talked about is exactly the same in the music industry.
Yeah, exactly.
New media, Spotify, YouTube, whatever. Same thing. We make all the music and all the content. They take all the money.
They steal it.
Oh, it's terrible. It's not right.
Every human being has a right to their own efforts.
Yes.
Nobody has a right to your efforts. If you create some music, or you create a screenplay, or you write a book, or you invent something, that is your own effort. No one has a right to your efforts. Yeah. So the issues with Spotify and I guess it started with Napster, where they would actually steal your product, and then online they had all the bit torrents and that they could take and steal. But you have to really remember how it affects the whole ecosystem economically. They say it's no problem. It was even brought to my attention. Well, if you go get a suit that's worth $3,000 and you have it ripped off, you have great material and they rip off the designer, you're still damaging that company and that designer from what's rightfully theirs. And as an artist, if you're replaying their work that they did in 1970 and you're not paying for that and you're just using it and somebody else is profiting by it on your likeness, on your work, that's unethical. So we have to change the ecosystem of business.
Yeah, there's ethics and then there's business.
Yeah.
They say there's business ethics, but I'm not so sure.
No. You know what we're going to do is, Pete Pigeon, let's hear some of your stuff. I'm going to go ahead. We, unfortunately, the phone lines are not going through today. So what I want to do is you guys go to my Facebook, Tracy Lynn Cowan, and I'd like for the first 3 people to private direct message me saying Hollywood Vibes Sports and Life. We love Pete Pigeon. you will get one of his new CDs. All right. So is this going to be a song from the CD?
Yeah, it will. This is a song called The Ways We Change.
Okay.
It's about traveling and growing and a lot of elements of Americana, traveling from the East Coast to the West Coast and back, but also life in general, you know. So here we go.
All right, guys, DM me.
The littlest things add up, a little at a time, enough to fill a whole coffee cup. Most don't even notice them, but taken at their sum, they all seem familiar now. In all the ways we change, and nothing stays the same for long enough for us to know our way. You leave another town behind, your memory will never find the faces who have been so kind. You'll forget more than you ever knew. Well, it's just another avenue. You're on a new one now. In all the ways we change, nothing stays the same for long enough for us to say goodbye. Oh, oh, ooh, oh, 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 ooh. The dawn turns into day, the morning is a shade of gray, and you've been driving your Chevrolet all night, non-stop until you hit the west, where the mountains are the best. From Route 550 north, in all the ways we change, nothing stays the same for long enough for us to know the ways we change. Nothing stays the same for long enough for us to know our way. All right. Thanks, guys. Best crowd I've ever had.
Today, right?
Yeah.
That was amazing. Oh my gosh, it gave me chills again. just listening to you. That was incredible.
Got some James Taylor in you.
Oh, you damn right.
I love it.
James Taylor.
Amazing.
Actually, funny story about that. When I recorded my first record, I did it at Q Division Studios in Boston. And I'd finished the record. I had to go in and pick up the master tapes. And I had heard that James Taylor was recording at the time. It was his October Road record, big comeback record for him, huge record. Was a huge James Taylor fan. We had all his records. How Sweet It Is was always on in the house. And so I'm like, well, I'm going to go pick up the master tapes when I think he's going to be there. And so I walk in, and the guys, he knew me. He was like, yeah, just go down the hall, And I was like, I need to check my email. He's like, all right, cool. So I go down the hall, and there's a computer in the main lobby, and there's a computer in the A room. And I just went to the A room and sat down at the computer and started typing. Sure enough, James Taylor's right where he is. He's sitting right across the way.
Nice.
Didn't say anything, no eye contact. He's just sitting right there, doesn't think anything of me. He probably thinks I work there, And going there, checking my Hotmail, And the studio engineer, or the studio manager rather, walks in and stands over my head and just stares at me. I'm just playing dumb, just typing away. And he's like, you have to leave right now. I'm like, why? What's going on? What? I don't know. And he's like, use the one in the lobby right now. And so I was like, okay, cool, whatever, And so that's as close as I got to James Taylor.
You should have said hello.
I know, right? I was just thinking that.
Maybe it would have changed my career,
Yeah, well, it's those little decisions, but big decisions that change the course of your life.
It's like the people are human beings. It's like
I know.
If you respect someone, you can say, "Hey, I respect what you do." But it's like Hollywood is obviously manufactured this, but fame that's manufactured. So someone's on television. I look, they see him, and they speak. They go, "Oh, we better listen to him." Why? I said, it's like the president of the Screen Actors Guild. Most of the time they voted on the popularity as opposed to the business acumen. I mean, you ask these people that are voting, would you want a doctor that's never went to medical school before? And they would say no. Would you have a financial manager that doesn't have any background in managing money? No. So why would you want a president of a union to run a business that has no experience doing so? It's basically popularity.
Of course it is.
So it's like high school. If you're a popularity, you could win the class president. And that's what you're taught. But it should come down to reality and say, well, who's best suited to do this job? Is it because there's a group of people that like you, or do you have do you run your business based upon ethics, principles, and sound corporate governance and business acumen, which the Screen Actors Guild doesn't have a reputation of doing.
Yeah,
I don't think we've had. I mean, most actors don't have experience in macroeconomics nor finance, and if they don't, they should be smart enough to hire people of our executives that do, and more of them, because if you don't understand that, you can't just go espouse some kind of garbage because you saw it in a movie. You need to hire people with MBAs in corporate finance,
absolutely,
to help you run it. Like the DGA has their own negotiating committee. They hire them.
Yeah.
The Screen Actors uses an actress to lead it from 90210. Good luck to her. And they use a labor lawyer and not an experienced negotiator. And when he came into this union, he knew nothing about Hollywood. And I'd much prefer people that are negotiating that have economics and financial backgrounds, and that are actually in the litigation field of negotiating.
Of course, it only makes sense. I mean, it makes sense to us, but the average person, I mean, it's, popularity contest. That's what it is. And Hollywood's, a lot of smoke and mirrors, and it's very interesting. I've learned a lot being in America from Canada. It's what I always kind of envisioned it is, but there's so much more to it. It's interesting. It's kind of like being in a video game, I explained to my friends back home in Canada, because you're in it, you're seeing it, but it's almost surreal, but it's very interesting. It's hard to explain, but
you have to unlearn it, I think. Like what you were saying before about the James Taylor thing. I was 16 years ago.
Yeah.
So in that moment, I was still pretty young, and I was green and nervous. And I didn't know how to deal with famous people, which is the majority of the country.
Yeah.
And then having done this career for so long, you know, I'll meet famous people left and right all the time. And now I can walk up to them and say, hey, man,
Yeah.
Pete, nice to meet you. You know, what's going on?
Yeah.
How was the sandwich? You know,
Exactly. It's
but-
nerve-wracking, though, too. And people put this stuff into your mind and tell you that you shouldn't approach these people. These people
well, that's
are...
marketing.
Yeah,
That's
and
like
it's...
It's like Coca-Cola. I always tell people, like, Coca-Cola, it's not the best soda in the world. It's the most popular soda in the world because they told you it was, and they marketed it really well.
Yeah,
But
it's-
I know
yeah.
it.
But what is there's no best soda. Soda is all toxic. And
Well-
It's all
The
crap.
bottom-
It's all
you know,
garbage.
the bottom line is they peddle toxins to adults and children since we're kids. If you look at it, how do I remember, hey, sugar frosted flakes, they're great.
Oh, yeah.
Or,
Magically delicious.
magically
but I don't
delicious.
even know.
No.
Lucky Charms? Is that what that was?
Yeah,
I don't even
yeah,
know, but
right.
I remember the jingle,
Yeah, I
to
remember
it.
like Easy Beefy Prime or Shake and Bake, and I help, mommy, and they shake and bake. I mean,
Yeah.
if you look at the ingredients in that, it's complete polluted garbage.
Yeah.
And when 90% of of our food is processed with high fructose corn syrup, all cancer causing carcinogens,
Yes.
and there's not a lot of things that are promoted that are healthy, because if the government was really looking after the people, they would outlaw McDonald's and Burger King and those kinds of fast food
Absolutely,
joints.
hands down.
Because look at Morgan Spurlock did a really eye-opening documentary called Supersize Me, where he ate McDonald's food, 3 meals a day for a month, and his liver was pickled like he was an alcoholic at the end of the 30 days.
Yes.
Now that should tell you something, but they pander sugar to children since they're 1 or 2 years old
Yep.
on television.
Yep.
You watch the Teletubbies or something, and the commercials, their commercials are all about cereals and things with sugar. I mean,
Exactly.
Kool-Aid. Let's have some
Keeping
Kool-Aid.
us
sugar.
sick and keeping our kids sick and
Yeah.
keeping us down, keeping the population down. I mean, I could go on for hours on this
Me
subject.
too.
Sugar is #1 killer in my eyes, and I can't preach enough about it. Especially, I was having a conversation with a friend, and we were talking about sugar and cancers. If you have cancer or cancer cells, guys, remove sugar from your body immediately, and you will see a huge difference. My mom lost her life 6 years ago, and she was craving sugar all the time, and I had no idea, so I typed it in, Googled it, started educating myself, and cancer thrives off of sugar, just like the human body. I mean, it's more addictive than any drug, heroin, cocaine out there, and it's deadly. It's absolutely deadly. I've actually weaned myself off of sugar. I used to be a sugar addict my whole life, so it's like one of those things. And
Caffeine,
Gatorades and caffeine
right.
and
And
all
that's why
those things.
Starbucks is a success, because you're actually peddling something that's addictive, so
Right.
people
Yep.
have to go back and it adds up if someone gets a mocha jamocha cappuccino frappuccino caramel latte
Yeah.
junior to
Pumpkin spice,
yeah, pumpkin
yeah.
spice with
Yeah.
a twist of foam, no foam, whatever it is, and they pay $4 for it.
Yep.
And then they try to do that. Some people do it twice a day. Think of $4 or $8 a day for 30 days. And,
Yeah.
and then-
Right.
Then you can, figure it out.
Yeah.
I mean, it just, it doesn't make a lot of.
And just
sense.
because it says sugar-free or fat-free, that's not real, guys. So if you ever want to be educated on that subject, definitely message me. So that's a
Right.
whole new
Well, you
topic.
can pay $120 to $240 a month. It's depending on if you do it once or twice a day. If you go to Starbucks,
Yeah.
I mean, if you figure that out, that'll cut into your gasoline bill if you want to drive your car. Cut into your food because you're drinking, something that you want to go to Starbucks for convenient and have a cup of coffee. But this metric works well. I mean, you can go to a store and get a pint of water for maybe $1.10, and people bitch at gas prices. They're but $3.20, but they'll pay $4.50 for a gallon of water. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's all marketing. This is something that I find that's an interesting study. Because
Yeah.
it's all
Yeah.
things. The way things are marketing, the way people consume, are geared to make money. They're not geared for interdependence, for well-being of our brothers and sisters and the human team.
Yeah.
They're really geared to make money. So
It's a psychological game.
well, it's more
know.
than a psychological game. You would want your family to be well, but
Well,
the people
right,
that,
but
the
they
people
don't.
that do this, the people that do this
No.
are also human. they're affected by their own policies. So they're actually creating their own demise by their own hand. You know, the thing, we all have to wake up and we all have to realize that we're on one team, and we have to treat each other accordingly and create interdependence. Because the only time you're really dependent is when you're a child and a baby and you need an adult for survival. Once you get past a certain age, I said, we're all really interdependent. We're never really dependent, because how can you say you're independent when, if you're trying to do a business or you're going to school, you depend on the teacher to learn. You depend on meeting a network person to introduce you to somebody so you can have an opportunity to do that job. And if you keep saying, well, I did it without you, see, I did it on my own, you never do it on your own.
No, it's a teamwork.
It's always interdependent.
Always team.
So people have the illusion that they're independent. They're not. It's always interdependent. I'm dependent on the farmer to bring me food. I have to pay them money. And the whole ecosystem works in interdependent level. The only time you're dependent is when you're a child.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that you brought that up, Pete, about that, not going up and saying hello or introducing yourself, because that, that's the thing that we're talking about in life, where we're fearful of those moments, but that could have changed the course of your life. I've been in those situations so many times where I just don't speak up, or
also he could have been, what the hell are you doing in my studio?
Yeah, well, so, exactly.
Well, I take I don't know, but I just think it's up to what I meant by psychology was that it's up to your own getting over the things that you've been fed in order to make your own decisions so that you can move forward and do the right thing. Because for so many years, I mean, I did drugs, I drank, I partied, I ate crappy food, all that stuff. I had to make a personal decision to overcome my own psychology to say, oh, everything they're telling me is wrong, so I need to step back and eat organic, and I need to exercise, and I need to sleep better and not eat these certain foods.
Yeah.
So that thing is that they prey on that and they say, oh, you're not strong enough to overcome what we're pushing on you. We're going to tell you to eat those sugar flakes, and you're probably going to go, oh, okay, sure. And some people are going to go, oh, maybe that's not a good idea. And they're going to go, no, it's definitely a good idea, until you do it or you don't.
And look at the difference in your performance now. Like, look back to when you were, we're abusing our bodies, we're
my
partying,
voice is
doing
so
that.
much better and cleaner.
Yeah, and your mind, the mind is sharp, and it's our strongest tool.
Sure.
Yeah, it's the computer that runs the body. So without that, I mean, if we're abusing ourselves and putting drugs and alcohol and all these different things and food and sabotage and stuff like that and getting distracted, I mean, it's really going to take you off your game.
Oh yeah.
You are phenomenal at what you do. I always say that if I actually had a good voice, I'd probably be like a Taylor Swift. I'd actually write great music from all my experiences and heartbreaks. But
that's where a lot of it comes from.
Is that where it comes from? Because
it's life experience. If you don't have life experience, you can't write a song. You just can't. And that's where most pop music comes from. If you get, the music factories in Nashville, where they literally have people in a quarter of the size of this room. There's a piano and a chair and a door. And they go in there and they write songs. There's a lyricist that writes the lyrics, and then they give them to session musicians. Session musicians will record those, demo musicians will record those as a completed demo. Then they'll pitch that to the management of certain artists, and then the artists will check them out with their managers. They'll decide on the song, and then they'll pick the song and sing the song. Okay. Which is not art. It's not. It's business, and it's marketing. It's saying what buzzwords are in this song. They're going to sell this song right now. What other elements of your musical performance are selling right now? Let's jump on that. We're going to have you play C to C sharp because that's hot right now. That's the marketing angle of music.
I don't think Van Gogh or Rembrandt ever did art for other people. I think when you do art, you do it because it's something in your soul calls you to bring something forth.
Right.
Not and really, if it's homogenized, it's like if we're writing I can relate this to any kind of artist. You don't do well. Let me think. The public would like this, so let me just do that instead of some piece of work. Maybe somebody never resonated with some artist's work in their lifetime, and then 20 years after they're dead, all of a sudden becomes the biggest thing. Since sliced bread.
Right.
But that happens all the time. I don't think anyone. If you're going to do art, do it because this is something that really calls to you, and it shouldn't be influenced by outside parties. If you really have that strong of a gut feeling about something, go with it.
That's right.
You know, use your own guidance.
I'm sure Basquiat would have wanted that $27 million in his pocket instead of the guy who just bought that painting, you know?
Yes, exactly.
Modigliani was drunk on the street. His paintings, some of the paintings are $25 million.
Whatever, you know? His albums are still, you know, top 10 on the charts.
Yeah,
you know?
that's right. Pete Antico, tell me how you got started in acting and as a stunt coordinator. And, I mean, let's share some of the films you've been in and some of...
I started in 1979 as a background artist, an extra in the movies. Well, I was trying to be a stuntman, but the guys that wanted me to do that were teaching me. A guy named Monty Cox and a guy named Tom Huff and a guy named Glenn Wilder, and the original Stunts Unlimited crew that was you know, brought into existence by a very famous stuntman named Hal Needham, who directed Smokey and the Bandit and Hooper. And Burt Reynolds, when he was 6-time international box office champ, gave Hal the opportunity to direct. Because at that time, it would be unheard of for a stuntman to be directing a film.
Yeah.
And Smokey and the Bandit was made for about $7 million, and it made $150 million. That's the equivalent of making about $400 million today on a film. So I applaud that. I was in college. I was in school in English and political science and economics, and my professor wanted me to go to law school. And I had Tourette's, and I was tired. I was in school for 16 years, and I couldn't sit still. I used to pace back and forth in college and just take notes, and because it was hard for me to sit in a chair. And I was on the track team. I played baseball, and I ran track, and I wrestled. And I decided when I got this opportunity, because I met Monty Cox, who is the most famed wild animal trainer on camera, and his wife at the time was named Susan Bacalani. And she was the woman who got eaten by the shark in the original Jaws movie at the beginning of the movie. Okay, and they were at Martha's Vineyard, and Monty was helping rig that. And I met him, and he introduced me to a guy named Terry Leonard, who was a stunt coordinator and second unit director on Apocalypse Now. Good friend of mine today. He's probably one of the most, you know, honored and you know, legendary stunt performers. Who has done, you know, all of John Milius's films, including the Wind and the Lion, and he also did Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom for Steven. And I met these phenomenal people who are athletes, who are in this field that was like being a professional athlete, and you learn the craft, and you got to travel. I got to travel around the world and with these wonderful people, and do this action. And there was no competition between stunt people and actors because we made the actors look good, so they loved us. It wasn't like an actor going, "Who's this guy trying to upstage me?" No, this is the guy making me look good. So come here, pal. Let me buy you a beer. So this, you know, the actors that are the big action stars today all have brilliant people that do action for them. And there's a lot of big actors that are phenomenal. At doing a lot of their action, but the big things they just can't do for insurance reasons. They can't get hurt,
of course,
or it stops. But I started that way. The first film I did was 1941. Terry Leonard was stunt coordinator. Steven Spielberg was the director, and I did a bar fight in a USO club, and I got indoctrinated that way. And I was working, you know, background or extra at the time, and I learned. The hard way, being a background artist wasn't very pleasant because they treated you like garbage. I mean, they would like lead you around like you were cattle, and I didn't take too kindly to that. I was a really, you know, I had a high level of education and I was a high level athlete, and I told a lot of people to F off at the time when I was, you know, when I was 21, and I got my Screen Actors Guild card on a television series called Charlie's Angels with Farrah Fawcett.
One of my favorites.
And I did a little martial art, a little flip, and because I used to do a lot of martial arts, so I had a great time, and that's the basis of how I got started. I ended up doing action and stunts for, you know, like Robert De Niro, because I did like 3 films with him. I did a movie called Midnight Run, which is probably one of my favorite comedies of all time. I did a movie called Showtime, myself and a friend of mine, Johnny C. Double him, and then I did another film with him called 15 Minutes, where I was nominated for a Toro World Stunt Award for Best Fight in a film. We did a little fight. I did a fight with an ex-UFC champ named Oleg Taktarov and another Russian actor, myself and Jim Palmer and Dane Farwell, Charlie Pacherny coordinated that, and it was a really brilliant sequence. And we lost to one of the rush hours, and I really thought we got ripped off because all the stuntmen just had to take one hit from Jackie, where we were doing this intricate fight sequence, and they had a big team, and you know, much respect for my all the brothers in that fight, but I thought you got outdone. Life isn't fair, but you know, we have a great bunch of people, and the stunt community is awesome.
Yeah,
you know,
I love these
they're
guys.
a wonderful group of people around the globe. I stand with all of them. And by the way, I'm going to say this: the stunt coordinators are trying to be recognized for Academy Awards. We're the only category, the only member of a body that's a department head in the film business that's not recognized. I mean, and the bottom line is it's the head of the Academy. I mean, Sarah Boone Isaacs stepped down, but it's really quite discriminatory that we're not. We provide not only billions of dollars to the film business,
Yeah.
it is an art and it is a science. And if you want to see all the intricate rigging with the pneumatics and cables and wireworks, if you watch all the action films that you see, that's a function of, you know, the stunt coordinator and the riggers and the entire team's work.
Yeah.
And we deserve to be recognized.
Absolutely.
I mean, you have a visual effects artist that runs a computer that gets an Academy Award, and we're where the rubber meets the road. Stunt coordinators write, we direct action, and we put it on film. We collaborate with the director, with all the stars. We're where the rubber meets the road, and we're not recognized.
Yeah.
It's really you know, a travesty. There's very intellectual people in my profession
Yes.
that really put together some of the most brilliant action you've ever seen. Fast and Furious, without my friend Spiro Rosatos, I mean, and Andy and Jack Gill, they do such a brilliant job. And Terry Leonard did a few of those as well.
Yep.
The reason they're so brilliantly done is because these people have such an expertise, and they write a lot of the action that goes into these. I mean, the writer just says da 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 da. They're
Yes.
intricate. Well, the stunt coordinator actually writes it and makes it work and puts it on film.
Yeah.
I mean, where would Bullitt be without the car chase? Where would Ben-Hur be without the chariot race?
Yeah.
I mean, there's movies throughout time that you go throughout history, that, you know, dating back to the Westerns, where Yakima and Joe Canutt were the most famous time. They used to work on all the John Wayne story. And Yakima Canutt is one of the most famous old school stuntmen. And if any of you stunt people are listening and you don't know who Yakima Canutt is, go out there and dunk yourself in some cold water. Yakima Canutt, every stunt performer should know who Yak is. And George Robotham, Chuck Roberson, who doubled John Wayne. I mean, there are some old you know brilliant films of and performers that do action. I mean, Burt Reynolds did stunts. Michael Caine was a stuntman.
Yeah.
Errol Flynn, and then you get Jocko Mahoney. These are old names that you should look up.
Yeah.
But I mean, if you watch old Burt Lancaster movies, he was a gymnast, and you would be amazed at the gymnastic feats that he did way early on in the '60s. I mean, he's phenomenal. So I have a lot of respect for these performers, and it's an honor to actually run for the presidency, but I'm doing it on the basis of ethics and principles within the groundwork of love and forgiveness, because we can't have a society of blaming anymore. You did this, we did that. We're also responsible for the surroundings we live in, for the government we have, for the rules we have, until the people wake up and understand that we have the power. And if we all understand that we're all brothers and sisters, and we can affect a change by raising up our consciousness and standing for something different.
Yeah.
If you don't want to eat sugar frosted flakes, don't buy them. Who said you have to buy them?
That's right.
You have to wake up, because
Power of choice.
we all choose we get the leadership we deserve. It's like everybody wants to get to heaven, but no one wants to die.
Absolutely. And I have so much respect for the stunt industry. So shout out to all my friends in the stunt industry and stunt coordinators. I mean, mad respect for you guys. Obviously, a lot of you know that that's on my bucket list, to be an action actor and to do stunts. So I'm learning some stuff right now. I'm going to be learning more, and I know I'm going to ask Pete a few more questions after the show, and so I'm excited. We only have a couple minutes left. I want to give a shout out to my sponsors at Curtis & Co. Watches. So you guys have checked those. Great watches for guys and girls. Really beautiful stuff. So www.curtisandco.com. Also, SWAT Fuel. I'm going to give you guys a couple samples tonight. I'm sponsored by SWAT Fuel, and I'm also using it today, so that's why I'm sweating, because I did my workout before, and I took a little too much. So give you guys these. You can try them out if you're interested. Obviously, it's such a great product, so swatfuel.com, and here, we'll give you a couple. So try those out for your workout, and we're going to end the show. How do we find you guys? So Pete Antico, how do we find you on social media so we can follow you?
I have a website, PeteAntico.com, Twitter @PeteAntico, Instagram @PeteAntico, and Facebook Pete Antico. Yeah.
Okay, and much respect to you, and also luck in the presidency. I know you're going to do amazing. So you're doing amazing things. Thank you for having a voice and speaking up for everybody. And Pete Pigeon, where can we find you on social media?
It's all at Pete Pigeon. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, or PetePigeon.com. And Pigeon is P-I-D-G-E-O-N. If you can go to the website and spell it wrong, you'll still find me. But just to make it easy on you.
I love it. Thanks to Pete and Pete for being on the show tonight. What we're going to do is actually have you finish off, maybe a little singing just to end the show, if you don't mind. We have like about a minute. So we're here every Wednesday, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific Standard Time at TLC Unleashed Show, the Hollywood Vibe, Sports and Life on the Power of Voices Radio. You can find me on social media at TLC Unleashed or Tracy Lynn Cowan, Hollywood Vibe, Sports and Life, or Tracy Lynn, Health and Fitness Life Coach. So check it out. I hope to see those 3 private messages from you guys to get Pete's CD and vote for presidency candidate here, Pete Antico.
Yeah, and I just want to know, I also support a lot of the national board members who are running. I support Greg Smers for a national board member in Billy Lake in New York, and the Membership First candidates on the national board side. Those people are ethical, and they're out to help restore ethics and principles and sound financial practices back to SAG-AFTRA. Thank you.
Amazing. You guys, thanks for watching the show today. We're going to end with Pete Pigeon on the guitar.
All right, it's a tune called You're My Girl. Got a big heart, baby. I don't know how to use it though. Whenever I start loving you, child, yeah, it seems I just abuse it all. And I get so tied up inside every time I see your face, 'cause you're my girl. Got a big bed, baby. The whole thing, I don't use it though. When you're looking for a place to lay your head down, baby, I'm hoping that you're gonna choose it now, yeah. And I get so tied up inside every time I see your face, 'cause you're my girl, you're my girl. You're my girl. You're my girl. You're my girl. You're my. Woo! All right. Hey, yeah. Hey, now, child. Hey, yeah. Hey, now,